The day Earth's weakest proved strongest. Let me tell you about the day everything changed at the galaxy's most prestigious military academy. The day we learned that being the apex predators of the universe wasn't quite what we thought it was. Another perfect score, Cadet Cracks Commander Thex announced, her 4 eyes glowing with approval as she reviewed my combat simulation results. As expected from a Drachnid warrior. I straightened my scaled back, my retractable claws clicking against the polished obsidian floor of the simulation chamber. Of course it was perfect. We Drachnids had evolved from the deadliest hunters in the known galaxies. Our ancestors had conquered solar systems while most species were still figuring out how to make fire. "Thank you, Commander," I responded, keeping my voice modulated to show just the right amount of respect. The simulation barely presented a challenge. The other cadets watching from the observation deck shifted uncomfortably. Good. They should be uncomfortable. In 6 cycles at the Galactic Elite Military Academy, no one had come close to matching my combat scores. Commander Thex's secondary arms crossed behind her back as she addressed the gathered cadets. This, future warriors, is what peak performance looks like. Cadet Cracks demonstrates why Gemma remains the most selective institution in the United Systems. I allowed myself a small growl of satisfaction. Gemma accepted only 1 in 10,000 applicants each cycle. Every species sent their finest warriors here, hoping to join the ranks of the Galactic Peace Forces. But everyone knew that the predator species like us Drachnids were naturally superior. "I heard they're accepting a human this cycle," whispered Cadet Naira, her luminescent antennae twitching with barely contained amusement. I turned my head exactly 47 degrees, the precise angle to show amused dismissal in Drachnid body language. "A human? You mean those soft, furless creatures from that backwater planet? This has to be some kind of political gesture." The gathered cadets buzzed and chittered with laughter. Even Commander Thex's upper lip curled slightly, though she maintained her professional demeanor. Actually came a new voice, deep and resonant. Grand Marshal Thex, our academy head, stepped out of the quantum lift. His massive form, covered in battle-scarred exoskeletal plates, commanded immediate silence. The human cadet scored higher on the entrance trials than anyone since Cracks. I felt my inner eyelids flutter in surprise. Surely this was some kind of joke. Humans were barely Category 3 on the galactic threat scale. My species, the Drachnids, were Category 1 apex predators. Even their strongest warriors would struggle against our juveniles. "With all due respect, Grand Marshal," I said carefully, "there must be some mistake. Humans lack natural weapons. No claws, no venom, no enhanced strength. Their endurance is decent, I'll grant you that, but..." Their trial scores were verified multiple times. Cadet Cracks Grand Marshal Thex interrupted. "The human arrives tomorrow. I expect all of you to remember that Gemma's reputation was built on excellence, not prejudice." As the Grand Marshal turned to leave, I caught Cadet Belith's eye from across the chamber. The massive Krigoth was our top close combat specialist, his crystalline armor gleaming under the artificial lights. He flexed his serrated arm blades and gave me a look that said everything this human wouldn't last a week. I clicked my claws against the floor again, this time in anticipation. Tomorrow was going to be very, very interesting. "Simulation complete," announced the AI. "Would you like to begin another session, Cadet Cracks?" "No," I replied, my fangs glinting in what humans would call a smile. "I think I'll save my energy for tomorrow. Something tells me we're going to have quite the welcome ceremony for our new colleague." The quantum lift hummed to life the next morning, bringing with it our newest cadet. The gathered crowd fell silent as the doors slid open, everyone straining to get their first look at the human. "That's it," Belith rumbled next to me, his crystalline plates shifting with barely contained laughter. The human stood exactly 6 feet tall, according to my optical sensors. Brown hair, pale skin, and absolutely no natural armor or weapons to speak of. He wore the standard Gemma cadet uniform, which only emphasized how ordinary he looked. "Welcome to the Galactic Elite Military Academy," Grand Marshal Thex announced. "Cadets, meet Jack Morrison of Earth." The human's eyes, only 2 of them. How limiting, scanned the crowd with careful precision. His face remained neutral, but something about his stance made my scales itch. He moved with an unusual fluidity, like a Venusian water serpent. "Thank you," Grand Marshal Morrison said, his voice carrying clearly across the gathering hall. "I look forward to training with the best warriors in the galaxy." Several cadets snickered. Naira's antennae curled in amusement. Training? More like surviving. But I noticed something others missed. When Morrison walked down the steps, his footfalls made absolutely no sound. Even our stealthiest assassin species couldn't move that quietly on the resonant metal floors. Cadet Morrison, Commander Thex, stepped forward. "As per tradition, you'll demonstrate your basic combat capabilities for your fellow cadets. The training arena is ready." The human nodded, still wearing that unnervingly calm expression. "Of course, Commander. What are the parameters?" "Level 8 combat drones," she replied. "Standard evasion and neutralization test." My inner eyelids flickered in surprise. Level 8? That was advanced even for senior cadets. Surely they wouldn't risk killing the human on his first day. Morrison simply rolled his shoulders. "Understood." As we filed into the observation deck, Belith leaned close to me. "Watch closely, Craxax. This should be entertaining." The arena activated, its holographic barriers shimmering into place. 3 Level 8 combat drones materialized, their weapon systems humming to life. Each stood twice as tall as Morrison, armed with neural stunners and kinetic blasters. "Begin simulation," Commander Thex ordered. What happened next made my primary heart skip a beat. The drones attacked simultaneously, firing a perfect triangulation pattern. Morrison should have been hit at least twice. Instead, he moved. No, moving wasn't the right word. He flowed. Each shot missed by millimeters as he weaved between them, closing distance faster than my combat-enhanced vision could track. The first drone went down before its targeting system could recalibrate. "Impossible," Naira whispered. The remaining drones switched to close combat protocols. Morrison dropped and rolled, coming up inside the second drone's guard. His hand struck out, targeting what looked like a random point on its chassis. The drone collapsed, its central processor somehow shorted out. The third drone never stood a chance. "Simulation complete," announced the AI. "Time 14.6 seconds. New Academy record." Silence filled the observation deck. Morrison stood in the center of the arena, breathing normally, not a hair out of place. When he looked up at us, I saw something in those simple human eyes that sent a shiver down my armored spine. He had been holding back. "Acceptable performance," Cadet Morrison, Commander Thex said, her 4 eyes wide. "You may join the others." As Morrison walked off the arena floor, I heard Belith growl softly. "Lucky shots, nothing more." But I wasn't so sure. For the first time in my life, I wondered if we predator species had something to learn about combat from our newest cadet. The next few cycles brought changes to Gemma that none of us expected. Morrison's presence turned our carefully structured hierarchy upside down, though not in the way we'd anticipated. Again barked Combat Instructor Pyrax, his blade arms clicking in approval. "Cadet Morrison, demonstrate the counter move." We watched as Belith, our strongest close combat specialist, charged forward. His crystalline armor plates shifted into attack formation, making him nearly twice his usual size. Any sensible opponent would retreat. Morrison stepped forward. The training hall went quiet, except for the sound of Belith's thundering approach. At the last possible moment, Morrison pivoted. His hand shot out, finding a pressure point between Belith's armor plates that none of us had even known existed. Belith, all 800 pounds of him, crashed to the floor. "Perfect execution," Pyrax announced. Notice how Cadet Morrison used his opponent's momentum and mass against him. Size isn't always an advantage. I heard Belith's secondary hearts pounding with rage as he pushed himself up. This was the 4th time today Morrison had dropped him, each time with a different technique. "Pure luck," Belith snarled in our native tongue. "The human has no real strength, no natural weapons." Morrison's eyes flickered toward us. "Actually," he said in perfect Drachnid, surprising everyone, Strength comes in many forms. Would you like me to demonstrate again? The challenge in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. Several cadets shifted nervously. Nobody spoke to Belith that way. Enough, Pyrax interrupted. Partner combat exercises. Morrison, you're with Cadet Naira. Belith, with Krax. As we squared off, I watched Morrison and Naira from the corner of my eye. She was our best aerial combat specialist, her gravitational control unmatched. She shot upward, using her species' natural ability to manipulate local gravity fields. Morrison didn't even look up. He simply stepped left, then right, dodging her diving attacks with minimal movement. His efficiency was unnerving. Focus, Krax Belith growled, swinging his blade arm at my head. I ducked, but my attention was divided. Morrison had yet to use any of the advanced combat gear available to cadets. No powered armor, no neural enhancers, not even basic shield generators. He fought with nothing but the standard uniform and whatever skills he brought from Earth. The human is making us look weak, Belith said later in the nutrition chamber. A group of senior cadets had gathered at our usual table, as far from Morrison as possible. Did you see how the junior cadets watch him? They're forgetting their place in the natural order. He wasn't wrong. Traditional species hierarchies were breaking down. Yesterday I'd seen a Category 4 herbivore species cadet practicing combat moves with a Category 2 predator. Unthinkable before Morrison arrived. Grand Marshal Thix seems pleased, Naira observed, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. Enrollment applications have doubled since word got out about Morrison's performance. Pleased, Belith's armor plates rattled. This human is destroying centuries of military tradition. Our combat doctrines are based on natural superiority. Predator species lead because we're born warriors. I watched Morrison across the chamber, sitting alone but seemingly unbothered by it. He ate methodically, his movements precise and economical, always conserving energy, always aware of his surroundings. How had I not noticed that predatory quality before? Have you seen his personal combat logs, whispered Cadet Zex, one of our tech specialists. He spends 6 hours in the training arena every night, after everyone leaves, running simulations that would kill most of us. Belith's primary eyes narrowed. Accessing personal logs is against regulations, Zex. So is what I heard you planning with your squad, Zex shot back, trying to arrange an accident for our human friend. The nutrition chamber went quiet. Even the ambient hum of the quantum processors seemed to fade. Careful, tech specialist Belith rose to his full height. Some might think you're getting too comfortable with our natural order being disrupted. I felt the tension spike. Lines were being drawn. The Academy was splitting between those who saw Morrison as a threat to our traditions and those who saw him as a chance to evolve beyond them. The human has to be dealt with, Belith continued, quieter now. For the good of the Academy, for the honor of our species, his gaze swept the table. Who stands with me? Several cadets straightened, indicating their support. Others looked away. Naira's antennae flattened against her head, a clear sign of disapproval. I found myself staring at Morrison again. He'd finished his meal and was reading something on his datapad. Combat manuals, probably. Always training, always preparing. Then he looked up, straight at me, as if he'd known I was watching. He smiled. Not the fierce baring of teeth that my species used as a threat display. Just a small, knowing curve of his lips that said he understood everything happening in our corner of the chamber. Well, Krax Belith's voice pulled me back. Where do you stand? Before I could answer, the chamber's alert system pinged. All cadets report to the main training arena, announced Commander Thex's voice. Mandatory combat demonstration in 15 minutes. Belith's armor plates shifted into an aggressive pattern. Perfect timing. Let's see how the human handles real pressure. As we filed out, I noticed Morrison was gone. He'd left so quietly that none of us had seen him move. Again. Something told me we were about to learn exactly what humans were capable of when pushed too far. The main training arena buzzed with anticipation. Every cadet, instructor, and even maintenance drone packed the observation rings. News had spread fast about what was coming. Nobody wanted to miss this. "This is a standard evaluation exercise," Commander Thex announced, but her secondary arms twitched nervously. "Cadet Belith has requested a full-contact demonstration match." My scales tingled as Belith stepped into the arena. He'd activated his full battle configuration. Crystalline plates extended, neural enhancers humming, combat stims pumping through his system. He looked like an ancient war god from our legends. And his chosen opponent, Commander Thex, paused, all four eyes blinking rapidly. Cadet Morrison. The crowd erupted in whispers and clicks. Credit chips changed hands as betting pools formed instantly. The odds were ridiculous. 50-1 against the human, then 100-1. No one was betting on Morrison except 3,000 credits on the human, Naira announced loudly, her antennae glowing with defiance. Several cadets laughed. "I'll take that bet," rumbled a senior cadet from the warrior caste of the Proxima system. "Easy money." Morrison walked into the arena wearing nothing but the standard cadet uniform. No armor, no weapons, no enhancements. He looked almost bored. "This demonstration will follow standard academy rules," Grand Marshal Thex's voice boomed across the arena. He'd appeared in his private observation box. "Victory by submission or incapacitation only. No permanent damage, no fatalities." Belith's primary heart rate spiked. I could hear it from here. "Request permission to set additional stakes, Grand Marshal." The crowd went silent. This was unprecedented. "Speak, Cadet Belith." "When I win," Belith's voice carried clearly, "the human leaves Gemma. Permanently. Our traditions and natural order must be preserved." More whispers. More betting. The odds jumped to 200-1. Grand Marshal Thex's exoskeletal plates shifted. "That is not within standard protocols." "I accept the terms." Morrison spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, almost gentle, with one condition of my own. Belith's blade arms extended fully. "Name it, human." "When I win," Morrison emphasized the "whenever" so slightly, "you will personally welcome and train with every non-predator species cadet who enters Gemma for the next cycle. You will teach them everything you know." The arena erupted. Predator species cadets roared in outrage. Others buzzed and clicked with nervous excitement. The very idea of Belith, pride of the warrior caste, training lower-tier species was unthinkable. "You dare?" Belith's armor plates rattled with fury. Morrison shrugged. "Unless you're not confident in your victory." I watched Belith's neural enhancers pulse faster. The human was playing him perfectly. There was no way Belith could back down now without losing face. "Terms accepted," Belith snarled. "Prepare yourself, human. I will enjoy this." Grand Marshal Thex's massive form leaned forward. "Very well. The stakes are set and witnessed. This match will be recorded for Academy records." The betting reached a frenzy. Credit chips flew. Reputations were wagered. Someone bet their family's ancestral hunting grounds on Belith. I felt Naira beside me. "You're worried," she said quietly. "Morrison is good," I admitted. "But Belith is our best close combat specialist. No one has ever beaten him in a fair fight." "Who said anything about fair?" Naira's antennae curved in amusement. Watch the human's eyes. I did. Morrison stood perfectly still as the arena barriers powered up, but his eyes never stopped moving. Analyzing, calculating, like a targeting computer running combat simulations. "Cadets, take your positions," Commander Thex ordered. Belith dropped into a battle stance, his crystalline armor creating a deadly geometry of sharp edges and reinforced plates. Combat stims flooded his system, pushing his already formidable abilities to their peak. Morrison bounced lightly on his feet. Once, twice. "This is your last chance," human, Belith growled. "Withdraw now. Save what little honor you have." Morrison's reply was so quiet only those of us with enhanced hearing caught it. "Honor isn't about dominance, Belith. It's about growth." The arena's environmental systems adjusted, creating optimal combat conditions. The quantum barriers hummed at full power. Medical drones hovered nearby, ready for the inevitable aftermath. I realized I was holding my breath. Beside me, Naira's antennae were practically vibrating with excitement. Combatants, Ready Commander Thex, raised her primary arms. The crowd went dead silent. Even the Academy's AI system seemed to pause in anticipation. Morrison's heart rate hadn't changed since he entered the arena. It beat with the same steady rhythm as when he was reading in the nutrition chamber. How was that possible? Begin. Belith launched forward with explosive force, his blade arms becoming bright arcs of lethal intent. Combat stims and neural enhancers pushed his speed beyond natural limits. The attack was perfect. Unavoidable. Morrison didn't move. "No," I whispered. "He's going to." The human smiled. And then everything we thought we knew about combat changed forever. Time seemed to slow as Belith's attack reached its target. His blade arms, enhanced by combat stims and powered by rage, should have ended the fight in seconds. Instead, Morrison moved. No species in the galaxy should have been able to dodge at that range. But the human slipped between the blade arms like water through crystal. Not jumping, not diving, just shifting slightly. Belith's perfect attack hit nothing but air. "Impossible," someone whispered in the crowd. Morrison's hand snapped out, striking 3 pressure points on Belith's armor in rapid succession. Sparks flew as neural enhancers shorted out. Belith roared, spinning to catch the human with his secondary arms. But Morrison wasn't there anymore. "Stop dancing and fight!" Belith's voice thundered through the arena. His crystalline armor shifted, plates extending to their maximum reach. The light caught them, creating a deadly prismatic display. "If you insist," Morrison replied softly. What happened next defied everything we knew about combat physics. The human moved toward Belith, directly into the killing zone of his blade arms. But each strike, no matter how fast or precise, met empty space. Morrison flowed around the attacks like he could see them coming minutes in advance. "He's reading micro-movements," Naira gasped beside me. "Look at his eyes." She was right. Morrison watched Belith's center mass, not his weapons. Somehow he was predicting each attack before it began. My combat-enhanced vision could barely track his movements. Belith's fury grew with each miss. His armor plates rattled as he activated his final combat protocols. Purple light pulsed through his neural network as emergency stimulants flooded his system. "You cannot avoid forever, human." Morrison stopped moving. Just stopped. Dead center in the arena. Avoiding, his voice carried clearly despite its softness. Who said anything about avoiding? Then he did something that made every predator species in the audience flinch. He smiled. Not the threatening display of teeth we used, but something far more terrifying. The smile of a creature that had been holding back. "Let me show you why humans survived on a planet full of predators." Morrison shot forward. Not with the enhanced speed of combat stims or neural boosters, but with the pure, explosive power of natural muscle and bone. His first strike hit Belith's primary armor plate with enough force to crack crystalline material rated to stop plasma rounds. The arena went silent. Belith struck back with everything he had. Blade arms became blurs of motion. Secondary arms deployed hidden weapons. His armor transformed into a whirlwind of sharp edges and deadly angles. Morrison went through his defenses like they weren't there. Impossible. Belith activated his armor's energy pulse system. "We are the apex predators. We." No, Morrison interrupted, his hand finding another pressure point. "You're just specialists." Humans, he ducked under a desperate swing. "We specialized in being adaptable." What followed wasn't really a fight anymore. It was a lesson. Morrison systematically dismantled Belith's defenses. Each movement was precise, calculated, using Belith's own strength against him. Combat techniques from a dozen different species flowed together in combinations we'd never imagined possible. "Your neural enhancers give you speed," Morrison explained as he disabled another armor section. "But they slow your natural reaction time. Your combat stims increase strength another strike, but they make your movements predictable." Belith's primary arms went dead as Morrison struck a cluster of neural nodes. Your armor is impressive, 2 more lightning-fast hits, but it limits your flexibility. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Morrison systematically proved that every evolutionary advantage we'd relied on had a weakness, that every technological enhancement had a cost. We humans had to survive among predators without natural weapons, Morrison continued, almost conversationally as he worked. No claws strike, no armor strike, no venom strike, so we learned to observe, to adapt, to turn strengths into weaknesses. Belith tried one last, desperate attack. His remaining functional armor plates shifted into their most lethal configuration, energy crackling between them. Enough power to kill 10 normal opponents. Morrison stepped inside his guard and pressed 2 fingers against a point where Belith's neck plates met his skull. Everything stopped. Right now, Morrison said quietly, I'm touching a nerve cluster that controls your primary motor functions. Slightly more pressure, and you'll spend the next 3 cycles relearning how to walk. Would you like to continue? Belith's mighty armor, the pride of his warrior caste, sparked and sputtered. Neural enhancers fired random pulses. Combat stims couldn't compensate for the cascade of failures throughout his systems. This is not possible, he growled, but there was fear in his voice now. Your species, you are barely Category 3. Categories, Morrison sighed. You really don't understand, do you? Humans didn't survive by being the strongest or the fastest or the most lethal. We survived by learning. By watching every predator, every prey species, and learning their ways. We took what worked, discarded what didn't, and created something new. His fingers pressed slightly harder. Belith went completely rigid. That's why we're dangerous. Not because we're the best at anything, but because we can learn to be good at everything. The arena was so quiet you could hear the quantum barriers humming. Submit, Morrison said softly. Not because I'm stronger, but because today you learned something valuable about making assumptions. I submit. Belith's voice cracked. Morrison stepped back immediately. Excellent first lesson. We'll begin your training with the new cadets next cycle. I think you'll be amazed at what other species can teach you. As the medical drones rushed in to attend to Belith's systems, Morrison turned to leave the arena. He looked exactly the same as when he entered, not a hair out of place. Breathing steady and calm. Commander Thex's voice shook slightly as she announced, victory to Cadet Morrison. Match time 47 seconds. The arena erupted in chaos. Credit chips flew as betting debts were settled. Cadets from non-predator species cheered openly. Others sat in stunned silence. But I watched Morrison as he walked out, finally understanding what made humans so different. They didn't evolve to fill a niche in the natural order. They evolved to transcend it. And that made them more dangerous than any natural predator in the galaxy. Looking back, the day of the fight marked more than just a victory or defeat. It sparked a revolution in how the Galactic Elite Military Academy approached combat training. And more importantly, how we viewed ourselves in the cosmic order. Fascinating adaptation of Krigoth nerve strike techniques, combat instructor Pyrax commented during the next day's analysis session. Combined with Venusian pressure point theory and, is that ancient Earth martial arts? Morrison nodded. With some modifications, every species has something to teach us. The observation chamber was packed. Even instructors from other departments had come to watch the replay. Frame by frame, Morrison explained each movement, each decision. Not boasting, but teaching. See here, he pointed to a holofrom, showing his initial dodge. Belith's neural enhancers created a slight delay between thought and action. About 0.3 seconds, nearly impossible to spot unless you know what to look for. I found myself leaning forward, scales tingling with newfound curiosity. How did you learn to recognize these patterns? Morrison turned those observant eyes toward me. Humans had to understand predators to survive them. We spent thousands of years studying how they move, think, and fight. Eventually, we learned to see the signs most predators don't even know they're showing. Naira's antennae twitched. But that knowledge alone doesn't explain your combat capabilities. No, Morrison agreed. That came from centuries of learning to combine different approaches, taking the speed of one technique, the power of another, the precision of a third. Humans aren't naturally good at anything, so we had to become good at learning everything. The mood in the academy shifted dramatically after that. Species that once trained exclusively with their own kind began mixing, sharing techniques. Predator and prey species worked together, each bringing unique perspectives to combat scenarios. Even Belith changed. I watched him training with a group of Category 4 herbivore species cadets, teaching them how to turn their natural flight instincts into tactical advantages. His pride hadn't diminished, but it had evolved. The applications are endless. Grand Marshal Thix announced at the next assembly. Gemma will implement new training protocols based on cross-species combat integration. Every species, from Category 1 to 4, has something valuable to contribute. The betting pools shifted too. No longer did species category determine the odds. Skill, adaptability, and innovation became the new markers of combat potential. "You knew this would happen," I said to Morrison one evening in the training arena. "You planned this from the beginning." He was helping me refine a hunting strike by incorporating elements of prey species evasion techniques. The combination was counterintuitive, but devastatingly effective. "Not exactly planned," he replied, "but hoped for. Humans learned long ago that strength alone is limiting. True power comes from understanding and adapting." "And that's why your species survived on a death world," Naira added, landing silently beside us. Her own combat style had evolved into something entirely new, blending aerial maneuvers with ground-based techniques. Morrison nodded. "Earth forced us to adapt constantly. Different terrains, climates, predators, prey. We couldn't rely on being the best at anything, so we became good at learning from everything." Reports spread through the galaxy. Other military academies began requesting human instructors. The Galactic Security Council revised its species classification system. Humans were no longer ranked by their natural weapons or physical capabilities. They created a new category, Adaptive Apex, species that could analyze, learn, and combine traits from across the biological spectrum. "But why show us all this?" I asked Morrison during his last training session before graduation. "Why reveal these advantages?" He smiled that same calm smile from the arena. "Because the galaxy is vast and full of unknowns. No single species, no matter how naturally gifted, can face every challenge alone. But together, learning from each other, that's how we all survive." I understand now why humans achieved spaceflight so quickly after discovering technology. Why they adapted faster to galactic society than any species in history. They had spent their entire evolution preparing for it, learning to learn. The next cycle brought twice as many applicants to Gemma, predator and prey species alike, drawn by the promise of a new kind of combat training. One based not on natural supremacy, but on understanding and adaptation. Belith kept his word, personally welcoming each new cadet regardless of species. His combat classes became legendary for their innovative combinations of techniques. As for me, I still hold the highest scores in most combat simulations, but now I win differently. Not through pure predator instinct, but by combining the best aspects of many species approaches, just as humans have done for millennia. The day Morrison fought Belith, we thought we were witnessing a battle between species. Instead, we were learning our first lesson about human nature. They didn't survive by being the best predators or the most elusive prey. They survived by becoming the best students the galaxy had ever seen. And now, they're teaching the rest of us how to do the same.